working for a startup or scale up and just finding that nothing works and that your finance team are just doing so much manual work? Hi, my name's Alysha Randall. I'm a fractional CFO and I also train new and aspiring finance directors in startups and scale ups. And today I wanted to talk to you about processes. So I spoke relatively recently about your finance tech stack and all of the different ways that you could automate your processes. So the different software that we use with clients and ones that I recommend. And I'll leave a link above and below if you want to check that out. But ultimately, processes isn't just about putting in a new piece of kit. It's actually a lot more than that. And in fact, if you don't look at your processes first before implementing software, the software is just going to exacerbate your issues. It's not going to fix the problem. So you really do need to have a look at your processes. So what we do is we have a chart whereby we look at all the different elements, particularly in financial operations, and check if there's anything that is quite time consuming. So that could be, anything from bank reconciliations, accounts receivable, accounts payable, and not necessarily just, the part that is automated, the obvious part, but everything around it. So recently we started with a client and they have a pretty good automated credit control element. So all of the emailing that goes out to clients is automated, chasing, the initial chasing. But there's a whole part of the process that is before that and after it that is incredibly manual and takes one person about 4 days a week just dealing with credit control. And so when you're reviewing your processes, it's not just looking again at the parts that have been automated, it's the bits before and after. So another way of looking at that is thinking about your team, asking them potentially to do a timesheet. So it doesn't have to be super detailed, maybe like every hour. What have you been doing? Every hour, you just log what you do for 2 weeks. And then seeing where they're really spending their time. So the two different ways, as I said, looking at it is looking at the actual process and seeing, end to end how it works, and then looking at your team and finding out where they're spending their time. So obviously the first thing to look at is opportunities for automation. So, there may be a part that you can automate, but the part in the example of a recent client, the part before and the part after needs revisiting, as in, does it need to be done? Can it be automated? Is there a better way of doing things? The part that is automated, can we change that so it'll work together? So there can be a situation where, particularly with startups and scale-ups, where all your KPIs are very manual, they're all sitting in Google Sheets. And so configuring and working with all of those can be really time consuming. And along with that is, your reporting is also very time consuming. So sometimes you need to take a step back and look at the entire process and see if there's a better way of doing things. Another problem that can often happen is duplication. So you may find that someone in your team and someone in another operational team may be doing the same thing, or an elements of their task may be very similar. So it's always worthwhile checking with that process. So when you're looking at a specific process, particularly around KPIs and reporting, that you really follow that process when reviewing it, not just what your finance function is doing, but outside the finance function, to ensure there's no duplication. The other big part, and this is also what I find is often the issue when looking at a real manual process, is whether you actually need to do it that way. So you might find that, when you first implemented a new process because there was a new product stream, or there was a greater need for it, a regulatory need for it, for example, a quick win or a quick task or a manual process was implemented really quickly. But when you take a look at it, you may find that it's been overcomplicated over time because, you just keep adding bits here and bits. And in actual fact, if you started from scratch, you could really simplify the entire process rather than complicating it. I find this is particularly true if a process has been around for, say, 6 months or longer. It can be overly complicated. And really, if you started again, it could be simplified. The other part of that simplification is really asking if you need it anymore. Again, there may be situations where certain tasks were made for other departments or for a particular reporting that's no longer used or required. So it may be another way of simplifying the task or the process because there's certain elements that are no longer needed and you can actually strip that out and just focus on the value add part of the process. And then finally, collaboration. So again, that kind of works alongside with duplication is there may be situations where finance or operations or tech even can do the process a lot faster, a lot easier, or by working together because of the knowledge that tech or operations have and the knowledge that finance have. By working together, you can make a process a lot slicker. So again, thinking about automation, thinking about being really efficient and thinking about processes, there is actually a big part of changing up processes is having a look at what currently is in existence, what you currently need, who should be working on it, and whether it can be simplified. Once you've done all of that work, then you can start thinking about implementing new software and how you can automate or improve the process. This is time consuming, I'm not going to lie. Reviewing processes, working out a way to do it better, easier, simpler, faster is not a quick win, but it's those short-term gain for long-term pain. Short-term pain for long-term gain. You wouldn't do it the other way around, would you? So you absolutely is worthwhile spending the time looking at these things, particularly if any element of growth is going to make this process unmanageable. And in fact, that would be the way that you would prioritize your process reviews. So reviewing processes as a finance leader should be on your to-do list forever. It should always be something you should review and constantly tinkering and improving your processes to make sure you're faster, slicker, better. Ideally, again, particularly with startups and scale-ups, because you are growing, probably the easiest way for you to work out what to tackle first is if the company was double, what would fall over the quickest? And that would be what you focused on. Anyway, I hope that's really useful. It probably gives you a big long list to think about. Again, I will link in the tech software that I recommend. If you want to look more at finance leadership skills, we do have a free guide that you can download. I'll leave a link below, and that will give you loads of resources to ensure that you're a really strong finance leader for your founder and for your startup and scale up. Hopefully you found that useful, and I'll see you next week. Thanks.